Welcome back to Moonkin Stitchery. My name is Crystal, and today we are going to be working on my Sugar Rush quilt pattern. Sugar Rush is available in 5 quilt sizes. I was inspired by Candy, so I thought this quilt needed to be made in some amazing, bright, fun colors, and I thought Tulip Pink was perfect for this. So I used Tulip Pink's bright fat quarter bundle with the cream fairy dust for the background, and since this palette kinda doesn't have like a true orange color, I went ahead with the orange and cream stripes. That way we can have all the colors of the rainbow. Now for the size that I am making today, I will not need all the colors in the fat quarter bundle, so I will be selecting a few colors to place off to the side. I'll then go ahead and iron out all of the hard creases before we start cutting everything up. And since this pattern does use curves, I highly recommend that you starch your fat quarters first thing. This will help avoid stretching the fabric when sewing the curves. And also, did I mention this was kind of like a no waste or very, very, very minimal waste fabric pattern? Because it is. With fabric prices rising, I do love to create patterns that involve little to zero waste. Now, a curved template will be provided if you do not have the Circle Savvy ruler. If you are planning on using the paper template, please make sure your printer settings are set at 100%. Do not scale to print. Some printers will automatically scale it, so just triple check before you print. And once printed, do see if that 1-inch square exactly measures 1 inch with your quilt ruler. Then you'll just follow the steps written on the pattern in creating your template plastic for the cutting steps. Now this pattern also uses the Circle Savvy ruler by Creative Grids. Not sponsored, but this is an amazing ruler. The link for it will be down below in the description. The pattern does have it written out on what size you will be needing to cut out. And quick tip, if you are struggling cutting the curve out, try using a smaller rotary cutter. I like to use a 28mm rotary for the smaller curves. The larger curves on this specific ruler do work great with a 45mm, but in this pattern you'll be cutting out the smaller curves, which the 28 rotary color is perfect for. Once you've cut all your curves out from both background and print fabrics, you're just going to switch a few around. Print A with background B, background A with print B. Now you're just going to sew everything together to make a mini block. Another great tip is when you are sewing curves, you'll want to start by moving fabric B about a 1/4 inch past the fabric A. Then you're going to start sewing around that curve, and then you should have about a 1/4 inch left over at the end. This is needed because you will be trimming your blocks down later to square them up, which will be the only waste you'll have here. Curves can kind of get a little tricky. Even if you are a perfect piecer, your blocks could end up a little wonky. So I highly recommend after you sew your curve, just trim your blocks down. Don't miss that step. So let's go ahead and get sewing. So once again, quick reminder, move fabric B about a 1/4 inch past the fabric A and carefully sew your curves. Try not to stretch the fabric. This is why I highly recommend starching your fat quarters before you started making your cuts. It will help stiffen your fabric to minimize stretching since we are going to be sewing on a bias edge. Now here is where the quilt pattern can become tricky for others. I am a visual person, so I will be building what a full candy piece will look like. Now, if we were to sew this together, this is not a perfect block for sewing multiple candies. You will end up with a ton of Y seams, which is not fun. But this pattern is actually based off of one block to make. If you make that one block, you will end up with a scrappy version if you just mix all your fabrics up. I do also have the scrappy version written out in the quilt pattern, so you'll technically have two quilt patterns instead of one. Create that one block and you'll be rotating it 90 degrees, and that's it. But today I'm going to show you the trickier version. So in order to do that, and to make solid candy pieces, you will need to make your blocks as you go. You can use a large table to lay out the mini blocks, a design wall, a bed, floor, really anything, but you just need something that you can start laying your mini blocks so you can build that pattern. To start the solid candy version, you will need to make two half candy pieces. Here is one half candy and here is the other. Go ahead and lay one half candy on top of the other, and we have now formed the top left-hand corner. We will be building this at a diagonal, but piecing blocks together to form standard rows and also sewing rows together to complete the quilt top. Here is the quilt block that the pattern is based off. Once you have created a 4-patch with the mini blocks, you'll just sew the blocks together to make a larger block. Now below we only have 3 mini blocks, and to the right only 1 mini block. So these are not completed, so no sewing just yet. Now I am going to push this off to the side so we can start building off of it so you can understand it more. I will go ahead and add another candy piece like so. Then another candy piece on the side. Then in order to finish this diagonal, you'll need to add 2 half candy pieces, one at the top and one here at the bottom. Here you can see we've now completed a few blocks, which I will spread out. Now we'll take the time to sew the 4 patches together to make the larger blocks. Now I am going to push these off to the side and just continue building. Depending on the quilt size you are making, you'll just keep adding on and on until you've met the amount of large quilt blocks per row. You'll then sew your blocks together to form a row, and then lastly, sew your rows together to complete the quilt top. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. This quilt can be a little challenging for the solid candy pieces, but just take your time and make sure you have some space just to spread things out. The scrappy version is available in the quilt pattern as well, so you'll have both easy and the more challenging option available for you. If you can, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell because the next video will be how I quilted Sugar Rush.